The year is 1983, and a wave of industrial unrest is sweeping Britain. Strikes and protests are at an all-time high. The economy is in sharp decline, and people's faith in their leaders is rapidly diminishing. But amid the strikes and protests, there is one thing that can unite the entire country: the fear of a new world order. He promises them hope for a better future and a chance to be part of something bigger than themselves. And they buy it, hook, line, and sinker. He believes that he is the chosen one, a modern-day Messiah, who has come to save humanity from itself. Members of the cult start to disappear, and no one knows what happens to them. Rumors begin to spread of a secret underground base where Guru performs bizarre rituals and experiments on his followers. Then there are the murders. At first it's just whispers, but soon enough there are too many coincidences to ignore. Former members of the cult start turning up dead, each death more mysterious and gruesome than the last. People start to wonder if Guru is behind it all. But he just smiles enigmatically and carries on preaching his message of love and enlightenment. The country was in the midst of a deep economic crisis, and the government as strict. Economic policies caused widespread unemployment and social unrest. The group's ideology was a mixture of traditional British nationalism, anti-immigrant sentiment, and extreme right-wing politics. The violence was so severe that police were called in to restore order. But despite these incidents, the National Front struggled to gain mainstream support, and by the end of the decade, it had effectively collapsed. By the 1980s, the National Front had become one of the most active and visible far-right groups in Britain. Some people argued that its tactics were too radical and disruptive, while others felt that its focus on environmental issues was too narrow and did not take into account the needs of local communities. Nevertheless, the movement's influence can still be felt today in the growing environmental movement. The Earth First movement was founded in the United States in the early 1980s and quickly spread to Britain. These changes created both challenges and opportunities for extremist groups, but none of them were able to gain lasting success. Instead, they were all eventually marginalized and forgotten. Its members were primarily young activists who were concerned about the state of the environment and the impact of human activity on the natural world, which goes into a lot of detail on how manipulative cult leaders can exploit people's vulnerabilities and control their behavior. I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. Its members were known for their violent and disruptive activities, including racist attacks, violent protests, and intimidation campaigns. Until next time, goodbye. This atmosphere of discontent created a fertile ground for extremist groups to flourish, and one such group was the neo-Nazi National Front, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to achieve that goal. They suspect that the cult is involved in a number of illegal activities, including drug trafficking, money laundering, and even terrorism. One of Guru's disciples is caught carrying a bomb into Buckingham Palace. The authorities swoop in and arrest him, but it's too late. The damage is done. The public is outraged and demands justice. Instead, its members used nonviolent direct action tactics such as protests, civil disobedience, and tree-sitting to raise awareness of environmental issues and to protect trees and wildlife. One of the most famous cases of Earth First activism in Britain occurred in 1989 when a group of activists occupied the roof of the House of Parliament in London to protest against the government's environmental policies. The government cracks down on the cult, arresting its members and seizing its assets. But it's not easy. The cult has a lot of money and powerful enemies. But every time they close in on the cult, they seem to slip through their fingers. Guru is always one step ahead of them. Just when they think they have him, he disappears into thin air. He uses his charisma and powers of persuasion to influence politicians and business leaders, and he even sets his sights on infiltrating the royal family. He believes that the royal family is the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe, and he's not afraid to use any means necessary to get what he wants. The cult is broken up and its members scattered, but Guru is never caught. But the children of God are still around today, though now they go by a different name. So if you want to learn more about them, I'll leave a link to my podcast episode about them in the description below. He vanishes without a trace, leaving behind a legacy of fear and intrigue. Was he ever real, or was he just a figment of the public's imagination? And what really happened to him? Well, that's a story for another time. Soon, he's got a loyal following of thousands who call themselves the Disciples. They live in communes, work on Guru's farm, and spread his message to anyone who will listen. And it's not coming from the Soviet Union or even Margaret Thatcher. It's coming from the most unlikely source imaginable, a cult leader who goes by the name of Guru. Guru is charismatic and charming, with an air of mystery that only adds to his appeal. He's also a self-proclaimed mystic and occultist with a deep knowledge of ancient wisdom and esoteric traditions. His teachings are a blend of Eastern mysticism and Western esotericism, which he claims can unlock the secrets of the universe and lead to personal enlightenment. But there's more to Guru than meets the eye. Behind his New Age facade, he's actually a former criminal who's been sentenced to prison for fraud and theft. But now he's free and he's looking to build an empire. And so he sets his sights on the weak points of society, the disenfranchised workers who are looking for a new cause to believe in. But Guru isn't satisfied with just being a spiritual teacher. He wants more power. As the cult grows in power and influence, things begin to take a dark turn. It's not long before the authorities are onto him, though. The tension builds until one day when the cult makes a fatal error. In the end, though, they are all brought to justice. Now, obviously, this is a completely made-up story, but it does touch on some elements of the real-life Children of God cult, whose founder, David Berg, did indeed proclaim himself to be the second coming of Christ, and whose followers did engage in some pretty shady activities over the years. So now, let's talk about some actual history. The 1980s were a turbulent time in Britain. The National Front was founded in 1968 by A.K. Chesterton, a former member of the British Union of Fascists who wanted to revive fascism in Britain. One of the National Front's most notorious incidents occurred in 1981 when its members clashed with anti-Arcist protesters in the town of Lewisham. Another group that gained prominence in the 1980s was the militant environmental group known as the Earth First movement. Unlike the National Front, the Earth First movement did not resort to violence or extremism to achieve its goals. However, the Earth First movement was not without its critics. Ultimately, the 1980s were a decade of significant social, economic, and political change in Britain. If you want to know more about how cults operate, I'd recommend checking out my video on the Manson family. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos.